Good morning. Good morning. It's Charmaine Hammond. I'm excited to be with you here today talking about trade show success. This is a topic I really love, and I was just at a trade show on the weekend, so I'm coming away with some very recent examples. And we also have one of our team members, the exquisite, I call her the goddess of the universe, Julie Angeletti, who is our marketing and events coordinator. So you're going to see Julie posting on the chat box, providing you with more information about what we're talking about, and she might be asking you questions about what you do in your business to be successful at trade shows. Julie has an extensive background at trade shows. She has exhibited and actually managed teams at trade shows and has exhibited for international brands and has a lot of experience about what works, what doesn't work, some of the common mistakes, things that we want to avoid. And I'm really excited that actually later on in this month, on April 16th, that's coming up right around the corner, I'm going to be in Calgary speaking at the PJAC, which is the pet industry Joint Advisory Council. They're having two events that I'm speaking at, one in Calgary, one in BC. Calgary is on April 16th, so I sure hope any of our Canadian friends that are in the area will stop by and come and say hello. It's going to be a fantastic event, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and how trade shows fits into the mix of our business. Then we're going to dive in and start talking about some mistakes that I see, some resolutions or solutions that you can use at your next trade show, and also some ideas of things that we've actually tested that work. And I'm going to share an epic, I always love to share an epic failure, something that I did at a trade show that didn't work well, that I'll never do again. Because I think when we hear some of the challenges, we can learn from those, not just the things that go well. Now, in terms of who I am and what I do, I speak corporately on the topics of leadership, building healthy, successful teams, and also conflict resolution. And I've kind of an interesting career path, like lots of you on the line today. I started my career, however, in the correctional system. I was a jail guard, a correctional officer in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And that's where I got the start to my career. Now, in those days, as a correctional officer, you didn't do trade shows. So that didn't come into my life until I opened my own business. So how did I get from being a correctional officer to owning my own business? Like all of you, I have a path, a journey that I followed. I worked in the correctional system for 10 years. And then when I moved to Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada, they didn't have a jail there for me to work at when I relocated to be with my husband, Christopher. And I had to find a new career. So I went back to school, got a master's degree in conflict analysis and management, and I opened up a mediation practice. So that's a lot different than what I do today. That was in 1997, and it quickly became a thriving, successful business. And we grew from having one person, me, to having 10 people, 2 offices, and I had an amazing learning experience. That's where I started to learn about trade shows and exhibiting at different events. Now, like many of you that are in business, we often go into business because we're following our passion. My passion at that time was helping people develop conflict resolution skills and communication skills. And I really wanted to get our message out to organizations and businesses that would hire us to teach their staff those skills or to mediate disputes that came up. And we started going to networking events where we could have a booth or a small table to promote our services. And then we also started exhibiting at conferences that I was speaking at as a keynote speaker, a breakout session speaker. And then we also started going to conferences where our audience hangs out, where the people that we wanted to do business with hang out. And I learned a lot. My first learning was the very first trade show that I went to. All I had with me, can you believe it? Where was Julie? Julie didn't work with us. That was so long ago. Julie would have had a conniption if she saw me show up at a trade show with just business cards. But I had a big, huge table and just business cards. This little pile of business cards, big table. That was learning number one, that nobody really wanted to come up over to my table. And I think the people that did just felt sorry for me. Came over to talk to me, or all the other booths were busy. Now, I came away from that very first trade show, which was a long time ago, 1997, with a lot of ideas of what we needed to create. So big difference from what we do now. If you fast forward to the year we're in now, I am still a professional speaker. I speak around the globe. I speak to authors and entrepreneurs as well as corporations because I have 5 books that I've written myself, and they often are part of what we're promoting at trade shows and booths. And I also speak internationally for corporations. Now let's dive in and talk about trade shows and why this topic is so important. And as we're doing that, if you want to type in on the chat box where you're listening from today, tell me what the weather's like. I'll tell you what it's like here in California. Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful here, sunny and just gorgeous. Let's see where people are from. If you want to type it in the chat box, and I'll keep checking over on that. Now, I would love to start us off talking about some of your learning needs. So if you have something you really hope I'll address today in the topic of trade show success, if you can type that in the chat box, and Julie, by all means, too, if you have comments on what we're talking about, just add them away. So we have Shannon. Hey, Shannon from Eugene. Shannon, I just love Shannon. She was one of our huge supporters and sponsors of our A Million Acts of Kindness tour. Thanks so much for joining us. We have Toronto, and it's like December. I'm so sorry. I saw on the news that you had a big blast of snow and ice. Hey, Lisa in California, 80 miles north of me, and it's sunny and beautiful where you are. That's awesome. St. Catharines, Beth, are you having terrible weather there too, or is that just Toronto? And we've got Ottawa. Wonderful. We've got a great crowd on today. Now, keep typing in the chat box. If you've got questions, I will get to those as well. So if you want to share what your learning goals are, and if you ever had an epic failure, a mistake that you learned from something that you did at a trade show that just you will never do again, and you've told people that you'll never do this again so other people learn from your lesson, I'd love to hear that. Oh, hi, Jennifer from Niagara. Great to have you here from Welland. Okay, so I shared with you epic failure number 1. I showed up at a trade show with business cards. Here's another failure that actually, though, was actually a success. One of the trade shows I was at about 5 years ago, I was speaking at the event, and it was a huge expo for pet lovers in Edmonton. And I love the work that my friends in Edmonton do. Around these pet shows. They have some amazing marketing strategies that they do, and they really enforce collaboration. And so I was speaking at this particular trade show about kindness and acceptance and respect, and the journey that our dog Toby had taken us on. And one of the learnings that I had is that I had been at some expos where I wasn't speaking. And for me as a speaker, we found that we were able to get more people to come visit us at our booth when I could say from the stage, come visit us from our booth. Now, that was one of the great learnings that we had from this trade show in Edmonton. But we were so busy at that particular trade show, I actually ran out of all our print material. So it was, in a sense, a little bit of not a failure, but a learning experience that I really miscalculated how much print material we would need. Now, the next trade show I was at exhibiting, I wasn't speaking, and we needed barely the resources I brought with me. So the learning from that is to really look at the different events, networking events, trade shows that you're speaking at, and to really get a handle on what your presence is going to be like there. Are you doing some kind of a exhibit where you can actually talk to the audience? Like for me, I was speaking. Sometimes people go up and do a 5-minute demo on the stage. In those cases, if you're doing a demo or have some way of being in front of the large audience on the stage, you really have to have a call to action to get people to come to your booth directly from the stage to your booth. And so that's really, really important. Now we've got a couple of people here letting you know what they want to learn. Christy says the goal of how to attract visitors to your booth without selling them and kind of luring them in. I love the word you use, luring them in, because Julie and I were talking about that before we went live today, that sometimes when you exhibit at events, sometimes the people that you meet I'm going to use my friend Teresa's word, schwarmy. And Teresa says the word schwarmy is you kind of get that uncomfortable feeling. So Christy's kind of indicating that with her question. How do you get people to come to your booth without being salesy or almost having people feel pressured to come to their booth because they can't escape you, and also that it isn't feeling like they're being lured in? One thing you can do, and that we've done really well, is things like contests, or where you have people doing a trial a sample can be a great way to do that. There was one trade show I was at, they had like a Wheel of Fortune type. It was one of those big wheels, and you spun the wheel, and then the counter would go around and it would end on a prize. And that booth was so busy. I don't even know if people knew what the booth was promoting, but people were coming to that booth because there was laughter, there was cheering, there was a lot of activity going on at that booth, and people were walking away with prizes. And they also did something spectacular. I'm going to mention this tip now, Christy, because it really relates to this example. That particular booth also partnered with several other exhibitors that were in different places in the big, huge trade show auditorium. And they partnered with people that were selling and promoting different products, but complementary products. And what was really interesting is that at that booth, the people that were manning that booth were also promoting other exhibitors' products. But what was happening is they had this shared promotion going on. So when people ended up at the other booths, they would say, go on down to this one. They got this great Wheel of Fortune type contest going on, and they were redirecting people that came to their booth to each other's booths. And I thought that was a great way to bring them to your booth without it feeling swarmy or luring them in, and it wasn't salesy. And because people were having fun, what this particular exhibitor did right, and I think it's a real takeaway, is they created an experience. They created an experience. People were going and good gossiping about them, saying, you've got to go to booth number 47. They got a Wheel of Fortune thing. You can win prizes. So they were actually promoting the booth. Isn't that awesome? That's what we want to create when we exhibit. Christy says, yes, I like that type of engagement. I do too. And it's actually really easy to do. Christy says, nice. Lisa says, how about enticing them to engage without it feeling like a carny? I agree. Getting them to come to your booth is step number one, and then getting them to engage is step number two. One mistake that I see a lot, and I speak at a lot of events where there are trade shows attached to the event, or where there's exhibitors just outside the room where the speaking conference is going on. And one thing I see a lot of right now is people on their cell phone. And I know we're on our cell phone at trade shows because we're doing things like live streaming on Periscope, or we're tweeting out pictures and comments and posts onto Facebook. But what I often see is that people get so plugged in to their technology that they haven't noticed that people have come up to their booth, waited, and left. So when we're using technology at our booth, we have to still be so present to the fact that people are coming up to talk to us, to engage with us, and that's one thing that we can do. One particular event I was at, there was an exhibitor that I thought had a great strategy. She had about 4 people at her booth, and it became really clear at her booth that none of them were employees. She was a solopreneur, so very small business, and she brought along her family members to support her in the booth, which I think is what a lot of us end up doing, isn't it? And she had trained them very well on the message. She had trained them very well on the product, how to engage customers, how to bring them into the booth. And what she did is she had one person out of the people that were with her that was responsible for technology. So out of the 4 people at the booth, only one of them was ever on the cell phone. And they had something above where she was sitting. She was kind of on one of those director chairs, and there was a little banner above where she was sitting that had their hashtag and their social media handles with a little arrow pointing down to her saying, you know, I'll tweet you back, I'll follow you back. And I thought that was a great way to build in social media into the booth experience, but to have people that were really present. Now, let me just catch up here. These are great comments, questions coming in. I'm catching up. Lisa says, I learned something epic at my GIS. GIS stands for Global Influence Summit. This was an event I hosted in February in San Diego, and Lisa was there. And she said that was to make sure that the visual message is your focal point of your booth. The vertical banner on my key message was worth every penny. I agree with you, Lisa. Making sure your message is visible and easily understood. And I'm so glad, thank you for shouting out the GIS and your learning there. A lot of people don't invest in things like standing banners. And I will tell you, the standing banners that that we have invested in have constantly brought people to our booth. They're so easy to move. They're not a lot of money. And in fact, in one of the workshops that I'm going to be doing for PJAC in BC and in Calgary, I'm actually going to be talking about sponsorship and how to fund some of the needs that you have with other people's money. And one way to do that is through sponsorship. All of the stand-up banners that we have and we have several that we use at events, all of those have been designed at no cost to me and printed at no cost to me because we were able to have our sponsors take care of that for us. So they are very important. Now let's go to one of the tips that Julie offered me that she thought was one of the most critical starting points for trade show success, and that is being really clear on your goal. There are a lot of events that we could exhibit at throughout the year, and we have to determine which ones are the best fits for us and where our audience is going to be, or a new audience that we want to promote to. So we have to be clear on what's a good fit, and we have to also be clear on what our goal is. Is your goal at the trade show or the event that you're exhibiting at, is your goal sales? So if it is sales, then you really have to make sure that your call to action, how you set up your booth, how you train your staff or volunteers is all geared to that message and that goal of sales. Maybe your goal is not sales. Maybe your goal is brand recognition. You've just launched a new product. So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of friends in the WIPIN organization, which stands for the Women in the Pet Industry Network. And WIPIN is an organization I love. They do great events and they go to a lot of trade shows, and so do their members. And one of the partners, one of the people in WIPIN had just launched a new product in their line of many products. And they were going on a bit of a trade show a journey. They were actually going on a tour of a number of different trade shows to exhibit at, and their goal was not sales, it was brand awareness. They really wanted to let people know about the new product they were introducing. Not only the product and its benefits and its features, but they wanted people to recognize the logo, recognize the graphic. And I believe they had set up kind of a scavenger hunt type exercise. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know people had little cards and they had to go around and get stamps on things and then come back to this particular booth. And of course, they're walking around with this card that's branded with a watermark of this logo of the new product. So that was an example where the goal wasn't sales, it was brand awareness. Maybe the goal of exhibiting at the booth, at a trade show, is to build your list, to build a newsletter list, to build your following on social media. If that's your goal, you really want to make sure that you plan strategies to do that. Now, one of the things that I see work really well, and I think a lot of you already do this, are contests or door prizes or raffles where people are submitting their name and their email to enter into the, to put their little stub of paper into the fishbowl, and then somebody pulls a winner out. It's really important when you're doing that to make sure that there's a box there that allows people to opt in. What people don't like is that they come back from a trade show and they are now on 75 new email letter lists that they didn't ask to be on because they thought they were just putting their name and email and phone number in to win a prize. So if you are building a list, it's got to be really clear that you're going to be contacting them. Very, very important. Otherwise, you just, as quickly as you build your list, you lose your list. Now, let me just see here. Julie's got some awesome tips here. Make sure you're reading this. She says, don't be shy to approach people at trade shows. That is so true, Julie. What happens a lot of times is that people are out of their comfort zone, right? So we're in love with our product and we can talk about our product all day long. We can show it, model it, and, get people to sample the product if that's appropriate. But getting people to the booth, if we're shy or uncomfortable with that, that's the first hurdle that we have to overcome. And I love that. Don't be shy to bring people in. And Julie or Christy's saying, thank you for the great tips. You're welcome. Jennifer says, I always promote the tables around me, but notice that the tables near, oh, I just lost the comment. Notice that the tables near me don't bother to do the same. It's frustrating. I agree. Here's something that I do at a lot of trade shows. I'm going to start from the beginning, the middle, and the end. So before I even go to a trade show, usually the event organizer has a list of who's going to be exhibiting at the trade show. I actually go and connect with them ahead of time. I go and make sure I'm following the ones that are a good fit for me on LinkedIn, that I connect with them. I send them a message. We're going to be at the same event. I'd love to connect with you. Do you have 10 minutes where we could actually strategize how we could support one another at the event? And so I actually strategically pick people that I'd like to collaborate with. The second thing I do is follow them on Facebook. I follow them on Pinterest, Twitter, whichever platforms they're actively using, and the platforms that we actively use. And again, the ones that feel like a good fit, those are the ones I approach ahead of time to see if there are some ways that we can collaborate. For some events that I speak at, I actually get brought in to train people, to train the exhibitors how to work in collaboration. It's really important, and you're right that not everybody gets that mindset. Not everybody is doing that. A lot of event organizers will have an event before the trade show actually starts. That's a great way to collaborate with them. And the other thing you can do, we've done this before as well, when we are setting up our booth and you've got everyone around you setting up their booths, you can go over to them and just introduce yourself and your product and notice that they have something that's very complimentary. I'm going to give you an example of a trade show. I was at, my friend Diana Bose does an amazing event for women called Fabulous at 50. And at this one event, there was a lady selling scarves and purses and all kinds of beautiful jewelry, Mariana. And there was another lady selling, I think it was shoes. And they connected about how they could cross promote each other. At the same event, there was a lady that was selling these gorgeous candles. They were handcrafted, personalized candles. And then somewhere else in the trade show, there was a lady who was selling tablecloths and outdoor wear. And they connected to say, could I use your tablecloth and have a couple of your products to have on my booth? And I'll give you a couple of candles and we can cross promote each other. Some of them even went so far as to provide coupons. Buy your scarf here and go over to that booth and save 40% on your purse or your jewelry. So if you can connect about those kind of collaborations, that will take your trade show to a whole new level of success. And people love it to hear you promoting other products because it takes away that feeling of salesiness when you're talking about other people's products. Now, some of the other things I wanted to talk about that we can do before, and then I have a couple of tips from people that have sent them to me in advance. There are things that we can do to promote our presence before a trade show, and I think a lot of times these don't happen. Before a trade show, so a few days or a week leading up to a trade show, you can actually put in your email signature line, come see me at booth number 62 on Saturday, April, whatever, at such and such an event. Come see me here, bring in this coupon, and you'll save 50% at the trade show. So you can put a coupon or even a mention for people in your email newsletter or your email signature line, sorry, to have people come and see you at the event. It's really important to know that I believe anyhow, that it's not just the trade show organizer's responsibility to promote the event. If you have a trade show with 100 exhibitors, imagine what would happen if each of those 100 exhibitors actively promoted the trade show to their audiences. Imagine how many more people would come, and imagine how many more people would learn about your products or services. So email signature lines, building on that, if you do a newsletter, make sure you mention it in your newsletter. I've had companies who actually will put it on their phone message. I love that. Sorry, can't take your call today because we are exhibiting at the such and such a conference in Toronto today. Come see us there. So make sure that you're finding easy ways that don't cost you anything to promote your presence at the event. And if you can offer people a coupon that they have to bring down to the trade show to get that discount, that's even better. Collaborate with people ahead of time. Make sure that you connect with other exhibitors on all the social media platforms. Ensure that you have a series of tweets and Facebook posts going out at least a month ahead of time. We also do email invites. So I'll just share with you at the conference that I'll be speaking at in Calgary and BC for PJAC, what we've done is we've emailed and LinkedIn messages people that we know in those communities that might want to come down and visit us there and meet some of the great exhibitors at that particular event. So you can invite people because not everybody that you're in contact with will know the different events that you're exhibiting at. So that's very important. A couple of other things do before the event is, if you have a picture in your head of what the booth should look like, it's really important to do a dry run. And I'll share an example of this. When we just started doing trade shows years ago, we hadn't actually we didn't do a dry run of setting up the booth. So we were figuring it out at the day of the trade show, where everything should go and how it should look. And that was very problematic because here's this team, there was 4 of us at this particular event trying to figure out where everything should go and what looked better. And then, 4 different perspectives on the issue. And so my marketing coordinator at that time said to me, why don't you do this at the office and take a picture of it, a couple of digitals, and do a video of it so that your team can remember what it looks like. And I thought that was a great idea because different people come to trade shows with you from time to time. So if you can have a digital of what you need the table to look like, what goes where, how people are going to flow through the experience with you, that is so helpful. And if you have family and volunteers that are helping you, you can just give them that and they can start putting things where they need to be. Make sure you need to leave enough lead time to order everything that you need. I can't tell you how many times my friends who were printers, how many times they get the day before or 2 days before an event, they get this panic call from one of their clients. I need a stand-up banner, or I need a whole bunch of business cards or flyers. And so sometimes people can't get printed what they want to get printed. Now, straight printing like pamphlets and flyers and cards can usually be done pretty quickly. But if you're getting swag printed, if you're getting some kind of products with your logo and website printed, those usually don't happen overnight. We had a really cool experience with a company that we were getting those bracelets. We were doing our kindness tour and we were partnering with Petland Canada, and we were creating these kindness bracelets together that kids could wear, and we would hand them out at the school presentations we did. And I had been doing some research on different pricing options, and once we finally figured out how many we needed, the deadline was getting pretty close to be able to get these printed. And we dealt with an amazing company in BC who turned them around within 3 days and did an exquisite job. So the tip there is, once you find a printer that you love working with, make sure that you continue to support them by giving them future business. Now, a couple more things that we can do ahead of time is, so you've got your goal, you know what you want to achieve at the event, you have a plan to support that goal, you are bringing people with you to man the table, whether it's family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, or your team, your staff. You need to train them. And so once you've trained them and you've got that digital picture of how to set the booth up, you've got all the marketing materials, you've looked at how you're going to get people to the booth, then you're ready to rock and roll. It's the day of the event. Make sure that you get enough sleep. People are probably laughing saying sleep. You're there till midnight setting up the booth and then you leave early to get there. But make sure that you're rested. Make sure that you have things like water bottles there and chairs to sit on, whatever you need to do to create an experience for you and your team. Because if you're tired, if your feet are killing you because you want to wear high heels and your feet are screaming, put flat shoes on. If you're not comfortable, it shows up in how you interact with people. I teach communication skills, and I know firsthand that if our body's not feeling great, it shows up with every word that comes out of our mouth. I also am going to say something kind of funny. I want you to practice smiling. It's, as Julie was mentioning, you want to be engaging to people. You want people to not feel shy about coming up to your booth, and a smile is a great way to engage. I've seen Julie at tons of our events, and one that really stands out for me was an event we did, a tailgate party in Winnipeg in Canada, and we had all kinds of people there, and she is so great at just inviting people to come and talk to you just by smiling and saying hello. And as I go to all these trade shows, I see a lot of people exhibiting missing that important step. They wait for the person coming up to them to say hello or indicate that they're interested in coming to your booth. And what Julie always does is she smiles and says, "Hi there," and she starts the conversation. And people usually don't want to be rude and just look at you and move on. They at least engage in a bit of a conversation with you. And that's the first step. So practice smiling. Practice it in front of a mirror. Christy's saying, "OMG, you are amazing. Love, love, love your information." Thank you so much. Jennifer's saying, yes, sometimes. What else have we got here? Let me see if there's any questions. So Julie was giving some tips around how you can capture people's information. That's awesome, really important. And I actually want to go back to that about capturing people's information. If you are capturing people's information through a sign-up sheet, I saw one group actually, they were testing new products and they asked people to be part of their test launch. They were inviting 100 people to get 3 months worth of product for free to be able to write a recommendation. You know what happened? The person at the trade show forgot to get the information. So they gave out, this was an epic failure that someone shared with me. So they had 100, I don't know how many people it was, but let's say 100 people say yes to the product demonstrations. They were so excited to get people in that initially they weren't tracking people's information. They had no way to get a hold of these people. Finally, someone figured out, but what they were missing was a form. They had been so busy setting up the system for how are we going to manage this product demonstration and the trials, they hadn't actually created the form that people needed to sign and give back and take away. So making sure that you plan your trade show and your event out at every step of the way and that you have all the resources you need. I'll give you an example. At the Global Influence Summit that Lisa was talking about earlier, we were doing videos of people. And so we had to have video forms that people would sign in advance and notices that the event was being videoed. So that was an example of where Julie looked at the whole event from start to finish and looked at what are the different resources or tools that we need to make sure that we have, whether it's a form or a slip for people to fill in for a door prize or contest. And if you're planning your event out in a logical way and sort of mapping it out, then you can easily see what are the steps that need to happen and the forms that need to be created for you to make sure that you have success. Really, really important. Let's see here. I'm just reading some of the questions here. Now, another tool that I've seen people use at trade shows is in terms of gathering people's list. So we've got activities like scavenger hunts where they have to submit a form and then they get a prize and you're tracking their information with permission. Contests, raffle tickets. The other thing I've seen people do is videos where they'll do little interviews, or they'll do, I saw one person who, I think this was at a pet event, and they were doing a training tip. So a little tip that people could take away with on training your dog. It was a trick, so something fun. They were doing demonstrations and they were offering people videos where you could be 5 minutes with the trainer and they would send you the video of you being trained so that when you got home, you could share this with your family and everybody could learn how to do this trick with their dog. I thought that was genius. It was really cool. And they had all the necessary paperwork to make that happen. So I guess the lesson is to be creative and to put yourself in the shoes of the people coming to your booth. If you were not you, if you were someone coming to your booth, how do you want to be treated? What questions do you want people to ask you to engage in that conversation? What do you want to be told about the product? You remember, you want to have really short sound bites. My friend Sean Duperrin, who's a media expert and a gossip expert, actually, Dr. Sean Duperrin talks about having sound bites. And sound bites are short captions that people can wrap their head around. And a lot of time at a trade show, people give them sort of all the information from their pamphlet, and it's just way too much. So a really short soundbite with a question, or a short soundbite with then an opportunity for somebody to respond to you, is absolutely essential. And those are things that we actually want to practice. When I teach communication skills, I encourage my clients to practice their communication in front of the mirror. And I know that sounds weird and wacky, but it's so important. Practicing in front of the mirror is going to show people what you're actually, or show you what you look like to other people. And the other thing that happens though, when you practice in front of the mirror, if you practice a 30-second introduction to your product, for example, or the first 30 seconds that you're going to say to someone as they're making their way to your booth, if you practice that, say, I don't know, 10 or 15 times, when you're at the event and you get brain freeze, have any of you ever gotten brain freeze? It's like your mouth opens to say something and you can't even think about what to say to sound intelligent. We've all been there. What happens is if you practice in front of the mirror 10, 15, 20 times, you see what you're going to look like. to people. But the other thing is it locks the information in your brain. It's just brilliant. When you show up at the event, you're not going to forget what to say because your brain has practiced it so many times. Really, really important tip. Now, oh, Lisa's got a great idea. They gave a shirt to those who spent 10 minutes completing a survey. Oh, that's awesome. That was an event in Austin, Texas that she was at. And Lisa said it was the coolest. I love that, a shirt. And talk about great marketing. You've got people walking around with a shirt. That's amazing. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and then Lisa adds here, the epic message from GIS was the soundbite needs to be your what's in it for me, for your customer. We sell to others to solve a problem or give pleasure. Absolutely, that's really important. What problem do you solve for people? Because then people can immediately relax and it gives them something to talk about with you. That's a great tip, Lisa. Thank you for that. Now let's talk about a couple of other things we can do during the event. So we talked a lot about things you can do before the event, how you can market the event in advance. While you're there, there are people that might not have heard about the event yet. What you can do is be using my favorite platform right now, Periscope. How many of you use Periscope? Type that in the chat box. Julie and I had so much fun with Periscope during our recent kindness tour, A Million Acts of Kindness. Periscope is a live streaming app and it's free, and I love free. It's a free app that runs on your cell phone and it uploads to Twitter. So imagine this, you're at a trade show, you take out your handy dandy cell phone, you turn on Periscope, and what happens is you are live streaming from the event. So you could be at your event saying, and you're basically creating a video. That's what's happening. And it's live streaming right up to your Twitter account. So people can A, watch it live, or B, they can access the video later from your Twitter account. And what I love about this platform, Periscope, is that it also saves the video to your camera feed in your cell phone. So you can download that video and edit it later and use it for other ways. So it's free. It's an amazing platform. And I love Periscope because it's live. So you could do, here's a person who uses Periscope exquisitely. Gila, who owns Dog is Good in California. She uses Periscope all the time, and she's a great person to follow to see how Gila is using Periscope. She uses it to demo dog training. She does training with dogs. She's actually done training with our dog from when we were in Canada, and she did it from the United States through different technology platforms. But what she does is she does interviews on Periscope. What a great thing to do at a trade show, to be at a trade show and you interview someone. Maybe you interview another booth. I used to do this all the time. I was at a writer's conference and I was speaking, and then I was there for the 2 days exhibiting. And I actually used video. They didn't have Periscope then, it was a few years ago, but I went around and I asked some of the booths if I could video them and upload it to Facebook. What do you think everyone said? Heck yes. So I had all these people that I was interviewing, and it was maybe, 2 to 4 minute videos, really short. So I always said my name and a little bit about myself and who I am and what event I was at. So what have I done there? I've promoted myself. I promoted at that time the title of my book that had just been released. I promoted the name of the event that I was at. And now I'm promoting the person who I'm interviewing, which is awesome. So I'm promoting the person that I'm interviewing and saying who they are, what booth they're at. And of course, as soon as I put it up on social media, they then put it up on social media, which was absolutely awesome. And it got shared between my audience and their audience. So these are some of the things that you can do at the event. Periscope, videos, making sure that you are uploading regularly to Twitter, and make sure that you are tagging the event host and tagging some of the other booths, because then they go on and retweet. It increases your followers. So if one of your goals was to build your social media platform, your followers and your list, that's a way to do that. So if any of you use those kind of platforms at events, I'd love for you to type that in the chat box if you're using those or even something different. If somebody just won a prize, this is one of the things Julie did at one of the events we were at together. When people would win our raffle prize, she would ask their permission to take a picture and put it up on Facebook. And there'd be a great selfie of Julie and the person who won the prize. And we'd upload that to Twitter and to Facebook. And it's important to choose the platforms that you use regularly. So this is not, a trade show is not the time to be trying out new platforms. If you've never been on Instagram, you don't want to be learning how to use Instagram at the trade show. Make sure that you're using platforms where you have a following and you are really proficient in that particular platform. Now, a couple of other things that we do during the event, we also go around and talk to some of the other booths. I look at who might be a great strategic partner for other things that we're doing in our company. I build relationships. Now, what's important though, if you're going to be leaving your booth, make sure that you're leaving clear instructions with people who are manning your booth for you so that your booth still runs when you're not there. That's really important. And that's where that training comes in. The other thing that we want to do during that time is making sure that we're replenishing our supplies. What's really interesting is sometimes the table starts to look messy or scarce. And people tend not to want to come to a table that looks scattered, messy, or scarce. If you're running out of products, this is something I saw at a trade show I thought was great. It was an early childhood education conference. And there was all these booths that had products and services for families. Not only educational products, there was people there with different diapers, there were people there with different toys, educational toys, books. It was really quite a diverse amount of products that were being exhibited there. And one particular booth, they had really cool, healthy food snacks for kids. And they were packaged up in really interesting containers. So their booth drew a lot of attention just because of how they marketed and positioned the booth. It was colorful, playful. They had music. There were things that just drew people in. But the table was getting so sparse because all the samples were gone. And the lady did something I thought was very cool. She put up a little sign. It was already printed in advance, so you could tell they'd been through this before. She had a great colorful sign and said, "Oh my gosh, people love our products so much. The samples are all gone." And then there was a big happy face. And then it said, "Want some? Put your email here. We'll ship it out to you tomorrow." And I thought that was a great way to say people love our product and they're all gone, but we'll still get you some. Don't worry. Great strategy. Now, what I want to do is read a strategy that Nikki, who is an online marketing specialist. I love Nikki. I met Nikki through the Women in the Pedantry Network. And Nikki is a PR expert and does work with Vet Strategy and also PIMG, and she's also a member of WIPN. So Nikki, if you're on live, you can come and add to your comment, but you wrote this so beautifully, I'm just going to read it because I can't say it any better than you wrote it. So Nikki's big tip was know who you are targeting, and she put this in capital letters with an exclamation mark. I agree with her. Know who you are targeting. Be clear about who you want to speak with and why you want to speak with them and what goals you want to get out of interacting with them in person or over social. So Nikki is in the pedantry business. So she says, in the pedantry biz, we spend a lot of time trying to network with everyone instead of being clear on who our ideal audience is. And this doesn't help us. Instead of having fear of missing out, which is how many feel if they don't get in front of everyone, it's important to be really targeted in terms of who you engage with and what each side has to offer one another. That's brilliant, Nikki. She goes on to say, for example, if you're a blogger and don't approach someone, don't approach someone and ask if they can give you free products and you'll write reviews. Instead of doing that, Nikki says, have a media page created that lets a business know what you can do for them or how you can help them solve a problem they might be having. Don't approach everyone. I think that's a great strategy. Only approach the people that make sense for your brand. Know your audience, know what they want, and keep your engagement on brand in order to best serve those who follow you, as well as avoiding confusion by focusing on too much. That is so important, what Nikki said about how we can create confusion by having so much. One of my mentors, Tom, This is from a selling perspective, and he does a lot of training for coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs, and authors. And we've been working with Tom for a few years. And when Tom was reviewing some of our sales approaches, he said, Charmaine, you have too many offers. We had an order form that I could use after a presentation that let people know that they could sign up for this service or this product or this service. And he said, there's too many. And he said, Charmaine, when you have too many options, people buy nothing. And what Nikki offered here is so important. Don't offer so much that we overwhelm people. And imagine if they're not even your audience, you've overwhelmed them and now turn them off. So be clear, be strategic. Christy says, so true, be strategic. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Nikki, for those awesome tips. And I'm going to put Nikki's links in the follow-up email that goes out with the replay so that you can connect with Nikki. Watch what Nikki does. Watch her on social media. You'll learn what we all need to be doing. Now, a couple of other things that we can do while we're at the event is interview the event host if they've got a few minutes for you. I love doing that. If I can get somebody from the host team to spend 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and I interview them live on location and I do a video, now I use Periscope, and it's my way of showing recognition to them. It's my way of showing recognition for letting me be part of their event. And it also shows influence. You're helping build their influence. And of course, you're an influencer in terms of how you're supporting them. And it's important when you do these videos to be really authentic and to have fun with them. Make them be a video that people actually want to watch. Make sure you take a lot of photos. I remember one of the early events that I exhibited at, and my husband came home and took the camera and the video camera, and they were empty. And he said, Charmaine, what happened? Did you delete everything? And I said, oh my gosh, I didn't take one photo. I didn't take one video. And those are critical for your marketing package. They're just critical for your social media to demonstrate your brand. Because imagine if you have somebody holding your product and there's this big crowd of people and there's this busy audience going on. What happens for us as we're looking at the photos, we think, wow, this is a big deal. This must be an awesome product. Look at all the support around it. So make sure you're taking photos, make sure that you're taking videos. Sometimes trade shows will have a videographer and a photographer there that you can buy a video from them, or that you can buy some of the photo reels that they have. Here's a strategy that I love. One of the events I was at, and I can't remember what industry it was. I think it was sort of like a home event where it was everything from kitchen sinks to decks to paint. So it was a very diverse, and it was just a huge, huge audience. Thousands of people came through. I wasn't exhibiting. I actually went, it was the home show. I actually went to the home show just to check it out and to learn. And what was really interesting is they were taking pictures at one particular booth. And I think it was sort of like a deck or a gazebo. And they had people sitting at the fancy table looking like they were having a great time in their new gazebo that they might own one day. And they had a photographer at that booth taking photos, and people then had to go to their Facebook page to get the photos. Isn't that brilliant? I love that. And there was no charge or anything, but it was a way of bringing people on, like our Facebook page, and then grab all the photos that you want from the Facebook page. You can do all kinds of things like that. And then afterwards, follow up. Oh my gosh. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we make. We get so busy coming away from an event and just getting back into business and taking care of what needs to be taken care of that we don't follow up. So we have to follow up. Everybody that we've promised information to or a product sample absolutely needs to get their product sample or their information. Then what we also need to do is, if we've had permission for people to be added to our email list or to receive a newsletter, then we want to make sure that we add them to the email list and send them the newsletter. If there were other exhibitors that you connected with and made a relationship with, that's where you want to really immediately follow up. And it's an email that says, I know you're probably crazy busy after the event. I am too. I just wanted to let you know I appreciated your time and us having a few moments to connect. And once things settle down from all the event follow-up we're both doing, let's set time to connect by phone. How about one of these 2 dates? And you position something 2 or 3 weeks down the road, not the following week, because they're still busy from the event. And then we set up a time to continue the conversation. The other things we want to do is we want to go on publicly and shout out the event organizer to thank them for putting together such an exquisite event. Maybe talk about some of the results that you had from the event. Thank you so much for putting on this event. This was awesome. I met great people. Maybe put up some of the pictures of you with other booths, you with people at your booth as well. So thank the organizer. I also send handwritten thank you letters and cards to event organizers. And one of the things we have to do is stand out. And if we can stand out in front of the event organizer, that will serve you well so much in the future. So thank the organizers. If you had clients that came down to the event and made a point of stopping by your booth, make sure you send them a letter or a card. And you know what, best yet, phone them. People love personal contact. And if they don't answer, don't say phone me back. Just leave a lovely short message. Thank you so much for coming down to our, we appreciated your support and it was so great to see you. Hope you had an awesome time. Forward to seeing you next time or whatever you say, but just a personal thank you for coming down to support you. If you have made a special offer, people at the event can save 40% on your product by such and such a date. Make sure you send them a reminder. You can do that through social media. You can also do that through their emails if they've given you permission to email. Sometimes at events, you get the opportunity to try other people's products that you love. And this is, I've actually found sponsors from doing this. So when I've gone to events and I've tried other people's products and I love them, I go on, and if their products are on Amazon, I go on and do a very authentic review on Amazon. I also type a review of their product up and send it to them by email. They might want to use it on their website. And of course, when I do a product review, I always say my name, my company, and I mention my book or the services that I offer, because that's what they'll put up. They'll copy and paste it right onto their website. You can also do a review for them in LinkedIn. If they're on LinkedIn and you're connected with them, you can go on and do a review for their product or service that you sampled right there on LinkedIn. And here's what I have found is that when you're a champion for other people, the lineup for people to champion you begins to grow. And that has been my journey, that as I go on and write authentic, honest, thoughtful reviews for people's products and services, I start getting reviews from people without asking them. They just happen organically. And that's part of that cycle of what Dr. Sean DeParent calls the cycle of reciprocity. And make sure that that is part of your follow-up. Also, talk to your team. Make sure that you do a review and learn. This is critical. There's a lot of you on the line today that go to a lot of events where you're exhibiting a lot throughout the year. And make sure that you always, did I say always? Do a review and learn. So there's 4 questions. I'm going to share what the 4 questions are. Question number 1 is you and your team, or you and whoever supported you at this event, are going to talk about what went well. What were the wins? You know, did you have a lot of people come by? Did you meet some new potential customers or clients? Did you get great feedback? People were giving you feedback. And here's a tip. When someone comes up to you and says, oh, I love your product, we've been using it for years, you say, oh, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that. Would you mind doing a quick video with me and we can just take that testimonial by video? And I've actually never had, I've had some people say no because their hair doesn't look good or they don't have their makeup on. And I said, can we just do an audio? Then I won't tape your face. We'll just hold the product up and I'll just get your voice. And I've never had anyone say no to that. And sometimes you can say, would you mind writing down a couple of words that you love about our product? And if they own a business, you can say, we'd be happy to promote your business through this review. So very important about that. Now I lost my train of thought. I was on a good tangent there. That's what happens when you're passionate. Okay, a couple more things for afterwards is we want to make sure that we are doing the review and learn with what went well. So get specific. What went well in terms of the booth? What went well in terms of the setup? What went well in terms of our pre-event marketing? What went well about working with this event organizer? So I'm just going to share with PJAC. I'm working with them right now on the event that's coming up next on April 16th in Calgary. They're awesome to work with. They've been mutually sharing social media tweets. When we tweet and tag them, they tweet and tag back right away, or they offer a comment. So I love that kind of relationship. And I know all of you have had those kind of experiences with event organizers as well. well. So track those things, what went well. Then the next question, question 2 in your review and learn is what, you're welcome for the shout out. Question number 2 is, what was a challenge? This is a really important question, folks, because this is your opportunity to fix it and get it right next time. So talk to your team. What was the challenge? Here's an example of what Tradeshow did. One challenge is the organizer really clearly said you got to bring your own chairs, and we just gapped out. We didn't bring chairs, and our feet were killing. We got tired. We were shifting like this a lot because our feet were sore, and it creates an awkwardness in the conversation. So that's an example. Another example of what was a challenge was we didn't have enough resources, or we didn't do a good enough job of getting people on our email list, or we didn't take enough photos. Whatever it is, jot down every piece of feedback that comes up for what was a challenge. This is your opportunity to fix it and get it right for next time. Then the third question, so we've got what went well, what was a challenge. Number 3 is, what did we learn? So maybe a learning, this is from one of my clients, they had a great learning at an event. They had a learning that people were confusing their product with one that was very similar. The logo was very close, the branding colors were almost the same, and people were saying, oh, I've tried your product. And then they'd say, oh, where did you buy our product? This is a great question. This was how they learned that people were thinking that their product was their product and it was someone else's. So one of the customers at the booth said, oh, we bought it at such and such a store. And they said, wow, isn't that interesting? We don't retail with them, but boy, we'd love to. And then of course they immediately went on to that retailer's website after the person left their booth and found the product that resembled theirs in many ways. And so they were able to say, wow, we need to find a way to differentiate ourselves. We need to find a way to really show that this is our product. And also they also discovered that we need to promote the retailers that we sell our product with. So they had a really great learning. And then the fourth question is, what are we going to do different? What will we do differently next year? And that's or next week at the next event. And what you'll find is your team will come up with such amazing insights. And if you do this review and learn process right away, you will have amazing insights because you're still sort of there. You're reeling from the event. Your energy's high. You're talking about all the wins, the challenges. What are we going to do differently? You'll find that going through this process will help you be successful. You will find that going through the review and learn process will help you fix mistakes or challenges or frustrations and really help build success for your next event, whether it be a trade show or something that you're hosting in your own company, like an event that you're hosting. Really important. Does anyone here do review and learn processes or something similar? I'd love your comments on that. Oh, Lisa puts a great comment. My mentor, Lauren Young, who I love, and he was a sponsor for our Global Influence Summit. I met him because of Lisa. He was our printing sponsor. Thank you, Lisa, for that. He told Lisa to make a list of the top 5 questions to ask visitors who came to her booth to prompt engagement. That's brilliant. That's really great. I love that strategy. And I have to be reminded that it's more about listening than talking. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. At events, we often do all the talking. And then when there's silence with the person we're speaking to, we fill it in with more talking. So building on what Lisa has said and her mentor has said, you want to create those questions and you want to practice them so they roll off your tongue very naturally. The other thing that we want to do is these questions have to be open-ended questions. They do not start with did you, would you, could you, will you. Those are closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions start with who, what, where, when, why, and how. They're engaging questions. Share stories. Stories connect people. Ask people to share their stories and then repeat their stories. That's my favorite part of being at events. Is the stories I hear from other people. And I cannot tell you how many stories I have shared at events that were other people's stories. And I tell them, I love this story. You've so inspired me. I'm going to tell the world. And I go and share their stories. And stories just make a really natural connection for people. And going back to, I think it was Christy's comment earlier, how do we engage people without feeling schwarmy or luring them in or feeling salesy? Stories are a way to do that. And it's really good when the stories aren't all about you, when they're about other people. Because then again, if the stories are all about us, it starts to feel salesy. So any other final tips or questions? We're going to start to wrap this up a bit, but there's a couple minutes left if you've got tips or questions you want to share. If you have a tip, share it with other people. I know that they'd love to hear what you're doing that works. Now, if we were to take this and roll it all up into a nice, neat package, because I've given you way more than 10 tips. We talked about 10 tips, but way more than 10 today. We want to strategize our next event before, during, and after. And I gave you tips for all three of those. And I will actually do a blog and an article so that you get all these tips again. And you may want to actually create a checklist out of some of these tips. I find checklists really help me in my business. It just kind of puts everything together. Julie on our team, the goddess of the universe, our events and marketing coordinator, is exquisite. She uses Google Docs a lot to create these kind of checklists. And they're really powerful for helping you keep organized. Lisa has a question. How do I convert my trade show experience from brand awareness to sales? Oh, I love that. You know what? That's a huge question, Lisa. And I'm actually going to answer that through one of the blogs. But there's a few things I think that you can do. And feel free, anyone, to come on and add if you've got something to add to this. But when you want to create brand awareness, if that was the goal and you now want to create sales, I'm just going to share what I've seen other people do that has worked really well. One of the people that were at a trade show who just did a great job at the trade show, and their goal was brand awareness and building their list. Sales were goal number 2. What they did is part of their follow-up, they offered people a great heck yes deal. Like there would be no reason why people would say no. So they had a special coupon that went out in their newsletter, private emails, and they actually picked up the phone and called people and said, thank you so much for coming to our event. I know that you entered in the draw, and we wanted to offer something really special to everybody who was there. And they offered just such a great promotion that it did convert into sales for them. I've also seen people offer samples after the event that have then converted into sales. The other thing that I've seen people do is they use one event to lead into the next event. So at this particular trade in that community in 2 or 3 months, then that may be a way of converting that experience and brand awareness into sales down the road a little bit. The other piece is that I know from sales, part of what's so important is the relationship. So the follow-up, the sale may not happen right away. And I hear this all the time from my friends who are in the trade show circuit. Where a big part of their marketing and sales model is trade shows and exhibiting. And they said that they don't often see sales immediately. What they often see is sales 2 and 3 and 4 months down the road, because they now move from brand awareness into building relationships. So the event is over, and now they go into building relationships with the people that they met at the trade show. And they do that through newsletters, through social media, through phone calls, through invitations to other events, offering great information, not sales, sales, sales. And then it naturally, when it's a fit, and people just love the product and they love how you're sharing information and value and content with them, they become a customer. And I'll add some more tips on that, Lisa, in the follow-up that we do. Great question. So here's what I want to share with you today: before, during, after. Make sure you got strategies for each of those, and make sure that you do your review and learn. For those of you that are going to be in Calgary on April 16th or close to Calgary, come and see me. I'm going to be at the PJAC conference. I'm going to be speaking actually on a topic I love to talk about: putting more money in your bank through things like sponsorship and strategic collaborations. And thank you so much for having me at this event. I'm really excited. And then we're going to do that same event, same presentation in British Columbia, Canada, May 1st. And I will be putting a link out to that event. So if you're in the area, come and see me. Let me know that you were on the webinar. I would love to meet you in person. Here's what I would also like to let you know: on the 8th, which is Friday, that's this Friday. Is that Friday? Yes, April 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific time, which is 9 Mountain and 11 Eastern. I'm going to be doing a 29-minute webinar. You're probably thinking 29 minutes, what's that about? 29-minute webinar on social media. It's a real fast overview on some amazing social media tips that you can use, and these are going to work also at trade shows and events that you exhibit on. So I'll send you the link for that. It's a free webinar. Thank you, PJack, for hosting that for us. And here's the other deal. If you have tips, just like Nikki, who provided this great tip for us today on sort of the whole concept of trade show success. If you have tips that you would like to share, if you send them to me and send me your website, and we'll include Nikki's in the article as well, but if you send me your website and some of your social media platforms, I'll quote your tip in my articles and also put the way that people find out about you, because I'm a real believer of the world benefits when we share each other's content and when we be a champion and an influencer for one another. So let me help you with that. Here's the final homework as you go away today. Final homework. Didn't know there'd be homework. Pick one thing, just one thing that you're going to take action on immediately in the next 24 hours to make your next event a huge success. And let me know what it is. Share it on Facebook. Tag me on Facebook. But one tip that you're going to commit to, and let's see what magic is created for you at your next event. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Charmaine Hammond, and I look forward to next time. Thanks, everyone.